Hi, good morning, and it's a lovely morning here in Port Elizabeth, but by the time you see this, it might be a good evening or good afternoon. So welcome to week 6, and the wonderful topic this week is rubric design, very important for teaching. Let's proceed. So a special welcome to you, home language, FET, and senior phase. Welcome to rubric design, week 6. Let's see how this goes. As you know, rubrics are quite important, grade reports for schools and for us. So let's see what designing rubrics is all about. However, again, a few housekeeping details because this saves time, hopefully with emails. Hope you listen to these and you read them as well. So when emailing, again, always give a descriptive heading. This is professional, not only for method, but for life. So always give a descriptive heading so anyone knows what your email is about, they know immediately what you want, and they don't have to waste time going through the content before afterwards. Right, this will save me a lot of headaches too. Always give a specialization every single time. I have got a list, but I don't always remember everybody. So I'm asking you, please always reiterate it. Teaching English First Additional, SP or FET, or teaching English Home Language, FET or SP, or both, all the time. Never stop, all the time. Right, always in your email, please be very specific about your issues, dates, numbers, activities, so they don't have to decipher what you're trying to say. What did you not submit, or what did you submit? What was the date? What is your specialization? Give me all the details so I don't have to try and work out what you're trying to say. Remember, I think my numbers are at nearly 140 now, so there's quite a few emails coming this way and that way, so I need to actually decide what I need to read and how I must read it, and save me time, please. And then again, I'm still getting the do not reply emails. I again have to search for your name because I cannot send it back to do not reply. This wastes time. Please, if you're sending, not using your official Embry email address, please use an email address that I can just reply to. Gmail, I don't care, as long as I can reply to you. Thanks. Right, let's go on to tasks and submissions. Yes, another headache. And flustering, yeah. Okay, please check submission dates. Just to inform you all that weeks, I think it'll come in this slide as well, weeks 1 to 5, I've extended everything that's important to the 20th of March. That's this Friday night at midnight. You should really be able to get these tasks done. All those online activities, I'll show you my spreadsheet just now, but they should be able to be in by this Friday night, right? I can start marking them. So all week 1 to 5 submissions close at midnight Friday night. Please take note. I've extended assignment 1 and 2 dates. All right. Again, assignment 1 closes this Friday night. Submit it as 1 document, not 2 documents, because then you have to email me and say, I've only been able to submit lesson plan 1. Please submit it as 1 document. Okay. Assignment 2, I think I've said the 16th in my notification, or the 17th, I'm not too sure, but it's actually going to be the 20th of April. So that's at the end after the Easter weekend. You've got until then to submit assignment 2. I haven't yet put the assignment 2 submission in. I will do that in the next week. So if you are finished already, please drop me a line and I'll quickly insert it for you. All right. Right. Assignment 1. We've had a whole lot of issues with late registrations, COVID-19, people not going on teaching prac and so on. So these are my solutions to this so that you can still submit on Friday night. Right. Consider using YouTube as your lesson observation. You're so good with this. So go and search on YouTube. Lesson presentation. Choose whatever you want to listen to. Language lesson. I don't care. Watch a lesson on YouTube. I'm sure there are many, many, right? Then you do the whole lesson plan from that. You can design your own lesson plan. You don't need to watch a lesson to do that. So take out your templates and design your own lesson plan. Then you are supposed to design questionnaires for each of these. So one is for learners, the other one is for a teacher. Attempt to get responses, if you can, from someone who is an expert in teaching for your lesson plan. If you can, if you can't, not a problem. All right, so still have to design your questions. Then let me know from your own reflection if you can't get someone to answer your questions. I would say even from asking one of your colleagues, one of your peers, to give you some kind of feedback, and then just let me know, put this on your questionnaire. These are the questions I had, wasn't able to do teaching prep. However, I've asked a lecturer, I've asked a colleague, I've asked a fellow teacher, I've asked a friend, I don't care, ask someone to look at your lesson plans, all right? And then you can reflect on their responses, or you can reflect yourself, that's fine. And then when you look at your teacher lesson plan that you've watched on YouTube or wherever, say, what would you add or what would you change on the way it was presented from your knowledge that you are gaining? Also, you could say, what would be a challenge to a grade 8 or grade 9 or grade 12? So you could actually self-reflect on these, but you can just let me know beforehand, I couldn't find somebody, this is what I have done, so I've decided to give my own commentary, or a colleague was able to answer my questions, or a friend or a peer, but just make some attempt, be creative. This is what we're all about now, be creative, but complete lesson plan 1 and lesson plan 2 with questions and reflections and submit it as one document. Okay, right. Please also submit on Turnitin. You can submit it as one document, that's fine, or as part 1 and part 2, that's fine. Please note, if you're doing grade 8 and you're doing grade 12, please, you can't have the same lesson plan. So if you're getting 100% for Turnitin, that is often because you have submitted the same lesson plan. And you can't be doing 2 grade 8s or 2 grade 12s. You have to do 1 grade 8 and 1 grade 12. This makes sense. And submit them as different lesson plans. You can't teach the same way, all right? For senior phase and for FET phase. Right, Turnitin. Initially, they were all quite low, 5, 4, 6, 12%, but now I've been getting a few 100%, and that just means you're duplicating, you're taking someone else's. It's really a warning light if you get 100%. You should never get 100% for this. They should be quite low because it's all your own creative work. No one else has your thoughts or your ideas or reflections, so it should be totally unique to you. No need for plagiarism or self-plagiarism. Right, that just makes sense. If again you are still very unclear about what I'm saying, email me and ask me to explain again. All right, because then maybe after that you will understand. Right, thank you. Okay, this is for home language. This is my spreadsheet. You can see I've itemized the things that are so important that you must submit. For FET, I've got 31 students. For senior phase, I've now got 52. That makes 83 students already, just from home language. I'm just like concerned why reflection 1, which is a reflection telling me about yourself, where you come from, only 18 of you from FET have actually answered that. 26, which is just nearly half. I'm not too sure why, but they're all open till the 20th. So go and write me 500 words. That's your last chance. It's not going to happen after Friday night. It'll be closed permanently. And you can see at least half of you haven't done this. Then you've got quiz 2, quiz 3, quiz 4, and quiz 5. Still a lot of red around. I'm quite glad to see that quiz 4 for SP is 27, so most people have actually answered. That means you're listening to the presentations and you're completing the quizzes. That's all you have to do. 10 little questions. Some of you are doing it multiple times to get your 10 out of 10. I think I'm going to have to limit number of attempts because I suppose not a bad thing as well. Get 10 out of 10 for everything. CAPS 1 document for SP. I can see 26 of you have now done it, but there are still not many that have completed the CAPS 2. Also closes Friday night. Use this time to complete these tasks. So assignment 1, half of you for FET have done it, and 21 for SP, less than half. So I think there's going to be quite a lot of catching up to do because this closes on Friday night. Right, don't make me feel like this. Right, thank you. Don't want to see this red anymore. I'm tired of it. And I know you got lots of work. but let's settle. You've got time at home, self-isolating and all that stuff. You can work quite nicely now. Thanks. Right. Okay, let's get on to the last part of Unit 2. I think there's a little fragment left for next week, and then we get on to Unit 3. So we are progressing. And we're still with communicative skills, both in the home language and the FAL classroom. So we've done the setting up of oral tasks and preparing oral lessons. We've looked at communicative language teaching and we've looked at some resources last week. This week we're going to look at specifically oral listening tasks and the development of rubrics around that. Right, so all the students are getting their report cards today. I think schools close tomorrow, and often this is the result of rubric design for assessment. Ferreira, there's your things all again from here. You can see all those chapters from Ferreira, and I'll give you the page references for all the rubric designs there. Okay, so mostly if you think about crashing again, an affective filter where students can't learn properly, if they are fearful and scared and anxious, brains don't work when you are in a high state of anxiety. So even while I'm speaking about completing all your quizzes and tasks for this Friday, I'm sure maybe some of you are still feeling anxious about that as well. Okay, so we try and reduce this and find solutions for test anxiety. And one of the ways people say is to give them less challenging tasks. Now, I don't think that's really a good way to reduce test anxiety. Why should you make things easier? Students should learn to cope with different kinds of assessments as well. Can we help them to learn individually? Yes, we can. We can maybe give them practice quizzes so that when they do go into the main quiz, it's something they understand. So if I had to take all the quizzes I've given you so far, you've practiced on them, and then I give you one quiz with everything, you should be able to do very well. So you can learn individually from that as well. However, one of the most important ways is to modify our grading systems and make it more fair, make it more standardized, make it so students can understand them, make it so they know why they are being assessed and what they're being assessed on. And then they will not come and challenge marks, and they'll have to be satisfied and learn from what they've achieved. Do you agree? Right, so let's look at a definition of what a rubric is. According to Babington, 2010, he says a rubric is a scoring tool, how you get your marks. And it uses defined sets of criteria, whether it is for speaking, so you look at voice projection, you'd look at pace, you'd look at gestures, you'd look at tone, you'd look at audibility. So you'd have your defined set of criteria, and then you'd link it to different standards. So is it a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5? Is it excellent? Is it good? Is it average, below average, poor? And this will be all linked to the learning outcomes. And this will evaluate the student's performance on that grid. So you'd have the rating, you'd have the criteria, and with that you would rate what the student had done. Okay, Craig also came along and added a few other things that I think are pretty good and important when you are using rubrics. It gives you guidelines to judge a product. The product is the essay, it's a speech, it's the listening comprehension, whatever it might be. It helps you to judge it in a fairer way. It explains what acceptable work performance will be. If part of your criteria for language is to say there are 0 spelling errors and you're going to get excellent for that, and then you can say to a student, well, look, you got 10 out of 10 for spelling because you never had 1 spelling error. However, for poor, if you say it was 10 to 15 errors and the student got 15 errors, you can say, well, this is why you got poor for that, because look, you've got 16 spelling errors. So they know what it means to have good or bad, and they can't really argue because they can see they've got 15 errors or they've got no errors. It tells them what's important in the learning. They might say for speaking, it's got to be audible, it's got to be coherent, it's got to be well-paced, and I must see eye contact. So they know, and if you give them 0 for eye contact, they'll say, well, that's because you read the whole speech. And then they will understand why they got that mark. Next time they do the essay, the oral, they will make sure they make eye contact all the time. It shows consistent evaluation. So you're not giving Mandla 10 out of 10 and he read the whole speech, and you give him poor Josie 2 out of 10, and she spoke beautifully without using her notes. So it makes sure that you're consistent in how you evaluate different students' work. It also guides them. They know what they must look out for when they are going to be assessed. So it's makes it very transparent. They know they've got to have this, they've got to have in their listening, they've got to have an introduction, they must ask questions, they must make eye contact, whatever it might be. It gives them criteria for improved performance. So I know if I want to get 10 out of 10 for spelling, I must make sure I use my dictionary. I must make sure there's no spelling errors. So I know how I'm going to improve my mark next time. It gives them specific feedback on how to improve it. As I said, you've got the different criteria and they've got the different ratings for that. So they know what each of those criteria mean. If it says perfect pronunciation and I couldn't say 10 words, they know that I can't, you know that you can't get 10 out of 10 for pronunciation if you couldn't say 6 words properly, pronounce them. So without a standard evaluation, assessment is no more than an instructional task. So if you don't have a standard of evaluation, it's not really an assessment. It's just like you're doing another task in the classroom. So everything that you assess, there should be some kind of standard of evaluation, and rubrics are perfect for that. Right, for the NCS, there's also a rubric definition from Ferreira on page 271. And they call it a tool as well. Remember, the previous one said it's a scoring tool. It's a tool that combines the rating codes with the description of standards. All right. So the rating codes might be excellent to poor. The description of the standards are the things that you must be able to achieve those criteria, and how are they actually measured. There are different kinds of rubrics. This can be holistic. So for a speech, you might include everything and say, okay, for me it was an 8 out of 10 because of this. All right, so you don't look at the division of what the different aspects, what did I get for audibility, what did I get for this, what did I get for the next thing. You're just looking holistically at it. Or it can be more analytic, where you will look at the distinct criteria. You have scores for each of that, rating scores for each of that, but it could be a combination of both of them as well. So if you have a look at this as well, this is also again from our friend Ferreira. Here you've got an example of a learner peer assessment. And on here you'll see that there are the distinct criteria to rate the work. We worked well together as a group. All right. And you'll also have the rating codes. And there they are, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you'll have the different criteria. And then you'll have the rating codes on how you're going to assess them for each of those points. So this is a typical type of criteria. Okay, so why do we design and use rubrics in the classroom? Because they are powerful tools for both teaching, your students know what they must learn, and how we assess. It's a very fair way of assessing. Rubrics are they improve student performance because they know what's expected of them. It allows you to monitor it. You can tell a student why they've got a certain mark because you can actually look at the criteria and what they rated there. It makes your expectations clear as a teacher. If you go and look at the rubrics I've given you for assignment 1, it'll explain exactly what is important as well. And it shows you how to meet those expectations. Okay. The result of using a rubric is that often the quality of the student work will improve because they will know what is expected of them and they know exactly how they're going to be judged for achieving those marks. And they can also become judges of their own work. So once they've finished a task, they can go look at the rubric and they can judge their own work and become their self-editors and say, oh, I didn't actually put a heading. There's no headings in my work. I have to put those in, otherwise I'm going to get 0 for it. There's no referencing. I need to reference my work, and then they'll quickly go and reference it. So it gives them criteria to which they can evaluate their own work as well, which is very important. So are your rubrics working for your students? They need to work. They need to come together with your learning outcomes, with what you're teaching, with how clear you are. And it's not always easy to achieve. So reasons to design and use rubrics is because it also, number 3, reduces the amount of time you spend when you evaluate student work. If you've got guidelines and you know exactly what the criteria are and the ratings are, it makes looking at a piece of work that much easier. Not always quicker because you've got to still evaluate it, but you're doing this more transparently, and I think that's really very important when you rate someone's work. What you do is now you would just tick the criteria or circle it. Instead of trying to explain what the flaw was, you had 10 spelling errors. You can just circle number 4 there because it says 10 spelling errors, and it makes it a lot easier for you as well. Not be so simple, just look at it and count them and see how many spelling errors there were. It gives them the students informative feedback, and they can see where they were very good, or they got all the spelling right, they got 10 out of 10, but gee whiz, because they had mechanics, they had no use of commas or full stops, and they scored really low there, so then next time they must try and improve their use of punctuation. You can easily explain it. I always put these up as PowerPoints for my students, and I go through them. So you can say, well, this is what the rubric is, this is what you need to do, this is how you'll be rated. So before they even start the task, they know exactly how they're going to be assessed. It also explains the difference between what is good and what is bad. And so maybe, hopefully, all the complaints might reduce. Obviously, someone might come and say, you said here bad is 10 errors, but I've only got 8. Why have you given me a 4? Okay, then you'd have to have a reason for that. So, well, actually, that was also a spelling error. I don't know. But it does explain the difference of what is good, and it helps to reduce complaints. And it allows many assessors to work on the same student work and get the same results. So if I'm applying the same criteria and there are many of us marking, we should all come out at similar results because of the criteria that is so clear. So it's very important to standardize marking when you've got more than one assessor marking student work. So if you're at a school and there are 5 of you teaching grade 8 and you've got the rubric, all of you use the same rubric, and so marks become standardized. Right, I'm going to specifically look at the 3 different kinds of rubrics now. We can look at the others as well. First of all, you have a good rubric will sometimes be about the process. How did you achieve that product? Or the product, the final outcome, the essay, the pamphlet, the final document. And progress, how are you going to improve? So these are different ways you can assess, and it can be sometimes a combination, but sometimes it can be just one of those. General criteria for most rubrics will include the specific areas for assessment, spelling, punctuation, grammatical structures, referencing, etc. The focused areas of instruction for the section, maybe listening would be questioning, summarizing, note-taking, eye contact, and all those things. It should be clear and very relevant to what you're teaching. They should understand what you're saying in your rubrics. It should be age or grade appropriate. And it should address both the form, which is the formatting, the layout, as well as the function, what you're supposed to be doing. You're trying to persuade someone. You're trying to describe something. You're trying to present something. So that function, is it represented in your rubric? So let's look at product first. That is your final document, what the students are going to produce, the essay, the pamphlet, the brochure, the advertisement, the game, a routine, instructions, whatever the thing is they must actually produce at the end. You're going to assess that. Their performance and their projects are examples of these kind of products. So the rubric might contain critical elements necessary for the required content. And it also could be a checklist of things they need to have. They need to have a heading, they need to have paragraphs, they need to have subheadings, they need to have a direct quote, they need to have a paraphrase, they need to have topic sentences underlined, they need to have a conclusion, whatever it might be, all these critical elements, you could list them all. And if it's a checklist, you would just go through that and say, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Do they have just this content? For this, you are not really looking at how they applied it or that they were correct or not. If they've got headings, they would get a tick. Doesn't matter if the heading wasn't too accurate or wasn't exactly the best heading for that paragraph. If it said they use punctuation and they've got the full stops in and they've got the commas in and the capital letters, they've used punctuation forms, yes. So they might not all be correct, but they've actually attempted to use it. So you can see the difference. It's not on application or the correct form, because this is process criteria. So product is the final document that you are assessing. Does it have certain forms, a checklist, and you go through that. Process criteria are the critical elements for the correct performance. What makes this a good quality piece of work? They can use these outlines to learn how to achieve them, right? So what is it? Just say spelling, remember? 10 errors would be poor, 0 errors will be 1. Excellent. And they can learn from that. So for instance, if you've got in English, you might have process criteria refer to the quality of either the writing, the reading, the speaking, the listening performance. So for speaking, you might be looking at pronunciation, and then you would differentiate between excellent pronunciation, you could hear everything, words all well pronounced, that'll give them a 1 or a 4, which is the highest, or they couldn't say 10 words, they're poor pronunciation, whatever it might be. Here you'd use an analytic rubric or multi-trait rubric because you'd have different aspects of here that you need, different criteria you would need to assess for this kind of process that they had to apply. They got the A there. And this process does not assess how much the student has improved. Okay, it'll just give you the quality of what they've done, because improvement is to do with progress, how they have progress. So it'll be progress criteria. That's our next one. So the progress criteria is how much they have improved. They've gone from 10 spelling errors to 1 spelling error. That's nearly a 90% improvement. All right? Tells you how much they've mastered. They were supposed to insert headings, and now they inserted 10 headings, so they've got full marks for that. So it shows how much they've mastered the idea of headings. However, if you want to see how much they've progressed, you can't just do it on their first document. Okay, so if I mark your caps reading 1 and reading 2, I then can make an assessment of how much you've improved from looking at assessment 1 and assessment 2, and I'm going to be marking this not with a rubric but with a memo. So it's going to be more, I suppose, subjective, but I will have my memo, so that will be my guide for you as well. But I can then assess that this is an improvement, that you have improved in the second CAPS reading, or if I look at all your quizzes, I can make an assessment on that as well. Okay, quickly, types of rubrics, also again, all over here in Vera, page 271 to 274, she gives a breakdown of these 4 different kinds of rubrics that you could use. First of all, the analytic or holistic rubrics are very complex and require time to generate, so they're not always easy and quick, because you've got to have your criteria, you've got to have your rating scales, you've got to really think about those criteria. What are you trying to measure? Is it clear? Can you actually verify why you gave that mark? And that takes time. Checklists obviously are a lot easier. You can list your criteria and you put yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, and that's a lot easier and quicker to generate that kind of rubric. Point systems also very much the same. It's easy to design, very quick to market as well. Okay, so let's have a look at checklist rubrics. You have to have yes or no, or agree or disagree. Very simple way to answer it. Your statements and your criteria there. So you list your performance criteria and you decide, is the trait there, is it present or is it not? Asked for headings? No, there's no headings. Or yes, there is headings. Right, it evaluates the critical elements or process criteria when quality is not a factor. You're not trying to say how well they did those headings. They were all perfect. They gave the key ideas. No, there is a heading. That's all I'm worried about. I'm not worried what the quality is. Full stops. They might have used the full stops in only one place, but they were there, so I'm not judging the quality of that. Okay. Very nice for journals and portfolios. Do they submit all their documents? Yes. We're not looking at the quality of what the product was, but we're noting that they actually just did submit what they were supposed to submit. Checklists contain more traits and descriptors than is usually found in other scoring guides. There might be 20 checklist points you need to go through, and you might only have 5 in an analytic rubric. Right, this is helpful because you can actually say, well, look, you only got 8 out of 10 because I can only give you yes on those points. So it's very easy for students to see why they got that mark. Here's an example. This is for assessing a task content, like a product, not the quality of something. I've described the interview in my report. So this is myself, my own checklist, yes or no. I've explained when and why the interviewee came to South Africa, yes or no. Did I do that? I've described the challenge the person has faced as an immigrant, yes or no. I described how the person maintains a connection with his or her heritage. Did I do that? Yes, I did. We're not giving quality here and saying that I did it for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. I'm just saying I did it or I didn't do it. You've got to decide, is this the kind of product type rubric you want? Often it's nice for when a student has to submit something that you can give them a checklist so they can go and tick it to say, I did all these things. I did do questions 2.1 to 2.6. I did complete a mind map. I did reflect on question 2.3. So you can use that as a checklist, and students can do that themselves. Here's another example. Assessment of items with description, descriptive writing, and there's a whole lot of criteria there which you can agree or disagree, and sometimes students can do this themselves, or it's quite easy to work out the mark from that. You just get all the marks for agree. Here's type of holistic rubric. If you have a look at the part on the left here, these are all parts of writing performance. It's the content, what I wrote about, how I organized it into paragraphs, what vocab I used, the grammar that I used, was it correctly stated, was it used in the past tense, for instance, mechanics, the punctuation, and did I use referencing? And what happens with the holistic, I just take all of that as one complete whole, and I give you a mark for that, 8 out of 10. There was, the content was there, the organization, I could see paragraphs, vocabulary was there, and I don't really differentiate between those different sections, and I give you 1 mark for writing. And that becomes quite blurred for students because they want to know why they got 8 out of 10. So sometimes analytic rubrics are far better because it gives a breakdown of how the mark was attained. They might get full marks for referencing, but they might get a very bad mark for organization. So that'll depend on the rubric. The rubric on the right, it's a speaking, and it's more analytic because it's looking at pronunciation, and it's giving a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1. So if it's just pronunciation, I'll say, okay, yours was fair. Okay, you say, why did you give me fair? Which might be 4 out of 10, 40%. When you say, well, I could see there were some words you couldn't pronounce very well, and some of the words you used incorrectly, I couldn't really hear what you were saying because your accent was a bit problematic there, and you mispronounced one of those words, and I didn't always understand what you were saying. So you can explain to a student why they got a 2 or why they got a 4. Excellent. They had no mispronunciation, just about like a native speaker, good intonation, you can understand everything, and so you can explain why you gave them a 4 or 100%. Also look at analytic rubrics as well. So this is a different kind of rubric, which it allows us to determine the quality of whatever those criteria are, and it's my judgment of what was good or bad, or poor or okay. So in this way, I'm able to judge the weakness or the strength, how good they were or how bad they were with a certain trait or element. For instance, how good was their spelling or how poor was their spelling? How good was their pronunciation or how bad was it? How well was their essay organized or how badly was it organized? So these traits I can now judge with quality. I can easily see where there is an issue or a problem that needs to be improved. I can see that this student never uses paragraphing, uses long paragraphs like this, that they need to break up their main ideas into key points and key ideas. So those will help me in my teaching as well. However, it can take time to score these rubrics because you have to read and really assess what the quality is. So it is possibly a more accurate score that you're going to give the student for all their work. These are words you can use as your rating scales, gives a semblance of what the degree of quality is. So if they're always making that error or they're always doing that well, they get a 4. If If they never make that error, they get a 1. Or if they never misspell, they get a 1 as well. So it depends on what your rating scale is. Let's have a look what else there is here. This is a rubric for an essay or writing. And over here, you can see you're going to assess the writing performance, and you're going to look at certain criteria. You're going to look at clarity and accuracy. This might be the word use that they have used as sentence structure. How clear is it? When you read that paragraph, do you understand what they're trying to say? You can also look at paragraphing, how they've organized their essay. Can you see main ideas in each paragraph? Or if they put 10 million main ideas in one paragraph, is there an introduction? Is there a conclusion? Very, very important. This is to do with referencing. Do they have a reference list at the end with in-text citations? You can see the first, the rating scale there is no referencing evident. So if they get a 0 for that, they will possibly understand. Or if they only get 1, whatever it might be, they'll understand why they actually got that rating scale for that section. According to Ferrer, also uses a primary trait, one key aspect, so it might be just organization. All right, so it's just one thing you're looking at. And it's sometimes quite nice to say to students, I'm only going to look at that in your writing. I'm only going to look at that in your oral. I want to hear if it's audible. And that's the only aspect I'm going to be looking at, not the content, not the way you're making eye contact. Could I understand what you're saying? Was it audible? All right, an example of trait of persuasion. You're just looking at that. So you're trying to do a persuasive essay, and you might have descriptors like this from 0 to 3 on persuasion. 0 is they didn't persuade me in what they were writing about, to number 3, there was a persuasive argument, which was well developed. And so you could rate them, and they can see why you scored them that much. Multi-trait is again rating learners on multiple aspects of performance, and you assess each aspect individually, very much like an analytic rubric. I think maybe Ferreira uses multi-trait, which is very much like the analytic type of rubric. And then you've got your different ratings and your different criteria. Criteria 1, 2, and 3. You've got your rating, great, good, not so good, and then your ticks, and that means that's a B+. Here's one for speaking. There you're going to rate accuracy as quality, fluency 1, 2, 3, 4, and language control. So you would assess them on those 3 traits when you're assessing their speaking. Listening. We've looked at listening. I've actually inserted 2 little YouTube videos here for active listening and good and bad listening. So you're welcome to go and have a look at those as well. They're quite interesting, and they're only about 2 or 3 minutes. Nice to show classes. I think the top one was on active listening, so it's actually quite nice to do as a task for a listening exercise. And here you've got active listening rubric, and then you've got your categories down the left, your descriptors going down the side, categories, your body, your position of your eyes, your hands. You summarize what the speaker is saying. You ask questions. You use the assigned information. There is an outcome. But your listening descriptors for quality are there at the top. It's the novice. You made lots of errors. You are nearing proficiency. You're proficient, and you're advanced. And you look at those categories quite carefully to see how they are worded, because it helps you with your assessment. Here we have a rubric for speaking. This is the same rubric I gave you for listening, for speaking in a previous learning event. So if you have a look at this, we've got our descriptors, which are only the criteria for the actual task, and there is no rating scale. We have just actually got a mark here. So if you have a look at this, you'll see that your descriptors are content and structure. And delivery. So for content and structure, I'll look at the introduction, body, and conclusion, as well as the visual slides, and I'll give them marks for that. This is not dividing it into excellent, good, average, and poor, which might be maybe a better way of putting it, but I might give them 2 or 3 out of 5. Students are inclined to not like this kind of rubric as well, because they like to know exactly why they got those marks. under delivery, I'd have audibility, pace, eye contact, etc. What I do with this kind of rubric, I normally give copious comments underneath it, so it does take time to explain why I perhaps possibly gave 9 out of 10 for audibility, or I only gave 4 out of 10 for eye contact if they were reading all the time or not making eye contact with the audience. So this might make it more transparent for your students, but it does take a bit more time. Another way of doing this is that this type of rubric where you're actually going to have all the criteria at the top: fluency, pronunciation and accent, vocabulary, grammar, and then details. So you'll have all of those over there at the top, and you'll have the rating scale on the side. So this gives them more an accurate, maybe more transparent verification of their grade, because it might be very fluent, so they get a 5 there, or it might be only 1. However, vocab might be a 4, and grammar might be something else. So this gives you more variety, and the students can see exactly where they scored low and where they scored well. So maybe using both the rating scale and the criteria gives you more transparency and fairness when you're actually grading someone. Right, why should we use rubrics? If you might ask, after all of this, I'm sure you know very well why we use rubrics now. Well, you give more detail than just giving a mark. Instead of saying 8 out of 10, the student has got, especially if it's an analytic or multi-trait type rubric, they can see all the text and they can see where they did well and where they did not so well. Accurately assesses whether all or some of the assessment standards have been met. So if assessment standard is pronunciation, they can see that they have met it or they haven't. Or is it using gestures? Have they met it or have they not met it? It gives them a better idea of what to expect, especially if they get this beforehand. They will then be able to see, well, I didn't use headings on mine and it requires headings. I know I'm not going to get such a good mark for this. It's fairer because you have the same criteria applying to all your students. It assists in isolating what is strong, what they're doing well, and what they're doing that is not so well. They're always having poor spelling, but they've got quite good ideas if that's one of your criteria. Yes, and it reduces the time that you as a teacher have to spend evaluating. Maybe I should design a rubric for the meeting of my checklist outcomes of CAPS 1 and 2. Let me think about this. Tips as a teacher, here we go, tips for you. Give it to your learners before. Be transparent so they will know how they've been assessed. It's so important that they know exactly what you are going to mark them on. Also ask them to assess their own work. That's quite interesting. So what you can do is give them the rubric. They can mark their own work, hand it in with their essay or whatever they're doing, or their peers, and you can use that as part of your assessment. Exactly, if they know all the criteria, it's going to force them to correct errors. I hate the word mistakes and errors, but correct their writing so that they meet all the criteria that is being specified in the rubric. So they can do this with transparency, knowing that they may have things correct if they've left something out. So I believe it's really important. Same as you've received all your rubrics beforehand, so you should know how you've been marked in your assignments. As a little task, just to finish this off, just do some application. Again, it's from Ferreira. If you have a look at the assessments and activities, the map that we have put up for this task and for this course, you'll see that there's something on listening on those pages and speaking in Ferreira. Go and have a look at those pages. And then I want you to design your own listening or speaking lesson. Not both, just one. You choose one using the template, and it's also on page 112 in Ferreira. Go and check those pages. And it looks something like this. So you're going to say, I'm going to choose speaking or listening. And then you're going to say what your outcome and your assessment standards are. So again, you're going to go to your CAPS document, listening outcomes or speaking outcomes for this task. And you're going to maybe list 1 or 2 outcomes. And then how you're going to assess them. Okay, what the assessment standard is going to be. Go and check the example in Ferreira. Again, you will list in the second column, you will list all the activities that you're going to do. Okay, I'm going to have an introduction on the importance of listening and how you must sit when you're listening. Okay, and then we are going to listen to a YouTube, and then we're going to make notes, okay, whatever it might be. Then for assessment, how are you going to assess your introduction? I'm going to do a checklist for my students, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the note taking, I'm going to use an analytic rubric with criteria. And then finally for the that, I'm going to do that. So try and think about how you're going to assess each of those activities. Have your listening outcomes. At the end, is the assessment measuring that listening or speaking outcome? Is it measuring your introduction? So just be mindful of that all the time. It should be quite coherent and linked. Digital task. This is going to lead on to next week's task. So it's important that you have some understanding of use of rubrics and what they should measure. So that's it. Happy Tuesday for me. Happy Wednesday for you. We're going on to look at listening and speaking still. Next week, it's going to be a face-to-face Zoom presentation. And we're going to look at resources, different examples, practical application of what we've been doing over the last 2 or 3 weeks, looking at speaking and listening. We are moving on towards reading soon, so we're moving through the items that we need to focus on. So enjoy your time out. Happy completing assessments and assignments for this week. And I'll see you next week on a Zoom face-to-face. I'm looking forward to that. So bye for now. Work hard.